For years, the palace pushed the idea that the royal wives were a united front. Meghan Markle's face sold it too, with a smile so fixed it looked bolted on. But Kate Middleton's behavior around Meghan told a different story. A story that no official statement could clean up. Welcome to the Star Report, where today, we break down 15 moments that prove the royal beef was never just a rumor. The seated greeting. Royal etiquette had a few basic expectations. One of them was standing when senior members of the family approached. Harry and Meghan didn't budge. When William and Kate arrived and were guided to their seats, the Sussexes stayed planted. No handshake, no embrace, just a mouthed hi from Meghan that barely registered as movement. The Cambridges sat down. The gap between the two couples could have been measured in miles. And the thing about protocol is this: it only looks invisible when everyone follows it. The second someone breaks it, every camera in the building locks on. Harry's jaw was tight. Meghan's posture was immaculate. William looked ahead like the pew beside him was empty. 4 people, 1 row, 0 warmth. The footage was barely 7 seconds long, but it told you everything about where these relationships stood. No elaborate body language analysis required. Just 2 people who refused to rise for 2 other people they used to call family. And the really uncomfortable part? The cameras weren't panning for drama. They were rolling on what was supposed to be a standard arrival. The awkwardness ambushed the broadcast. But that seating arrangement wasn't an accident. The real snub happened before anyone sat down. The procession cut. The year before, Meghan and Harry had walked through Westminster Abbey as part of the Queen's formal procession, side by side with the senior royals. Equal footing, full pageantry. In 2020, they were shown to their seats like wedding guests who'd arrived early. That shift told the entire story without a single word. The palace didn't need to issue a statement about the Sussexes' diminished status. They just rerouted the foot traffic. Meghan walked in with her chin up. The emerald cape billowed behind her like she'd dressed for a coronation, not a demotion. Harry matched her energy. Straight back, fixed expression. The 2 of them moved through the Abbey like they knew exactly what the seating reassignment meant and had decided to look spectacular anyway. But the visual was brutal. Last year, part of the procession. This year, seated before it even started. The monarchy had a talent for delivering consequences without ever raising its voice. No public reprimand, no leaked statement. Just a quiet rerouting of bodies through a building. And the procession cut was a whisper that landed like a slap. Still, there was one person inside that abbey who didn't get the memo about freezing Meghan out. Charles's soft spot. In the middle of all that frost, Prince Charles did something unexpected. He acknowledged Meghan, not stiffly, not out of obligation. He turned toward her with a look that bordered on genuine warmth. A brief exchange, a softness in his expression, the kind of moment that stood out precisely because of how rare it was in that room. Meghan lit up. Not the locked-on grin she wore for the cameras, something closer to relief. Charles had always walked a quieter line with his younger son's wife. And on a day when every other royal interaction felt scripted by a crisis management team, his small gesture cracked the ice just enough to be noticeable. It also made the contrast sharper. Because if the future King of England could manage basic courtesy, the Cambridge freeze looked like a choice. A deliberate one. And speaking of deliberate choices, Harry and Meghan made one of their own that morning. One you'd only catch if you looked closely. The emerald lining. Meghan's emerald green dress and cape grabbed attention the moment she stepped out of the car. Bold, regal, a color associated with loyalty and renewal. But the real detail was hiding inside Harry's suit. When a gust of wind caught his jacket, the camera picked up the silk lining. Emerald green. An exact match to Meghan's outfit. This wasn't a coincidence. It was choreography. In the language of royal dressing, where every hem and brooch carried weight, matching your suit lining to your wife's dress on your final public engagement together was a statement. It said, alignment, partnership, us against the room. The Cambridges didn't coordinate. William wore a standard navy suit. Kate wore red. 2 people dressed for the same event, but clearly not for each other. 2 couples, one visually locked together, the other occupying separate aesthetic planets. And the wildest part? Rewind barely 14 months, and the body language between these 4 told a completely different story. Christmas ghosts. Christmas Day, 2018. Sandringham. The 4 of them were walking from church. Kate and Meghan leaned in toward each other. Subtle, but visible. Repeated eye contact. A rhythm that looked like 2 people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Body language expert Molly Burney broke it down in an interview. She pointed to the warmth, a playfulness in the interaction. Meghan's smile wasn't locked. It was soft, reflected in her eyes, not just stretched across her mouth. This was before finding freedom, before Megxit, before the Oprah interview. This was two women who still had a chance at a real relationship. What made the Commonwealth Day footage so devastating wasn't the coldness itself. It was knowing what the warmth looked like. The camera had receipts for both versions. 14 months had turned lean-ins into straight spines and eye contact into avoidance. And the book that would eventually explain why was already being written. Cordial, but distant. Finding Freedom, the biography by royal reporters Omid Scobie and Carolyn Durand, pulled back the curtain with surgical precision. By July 2019, barely 6 months after that warm Christmas stroll, the rapport between Kate and Meghan had cooled to what the authors called cordial but distant, polite enough for cameras, hollow underneath. The book revealed that both couples had tried to repair things in the second half of 2019. Conversations happened. Efforts were made. But when Harry and Meghan announced their step back in January 2020, whatever fragile goodwill they'd rebuilt burned to the ground overnight. William and Kate reportedly felt blindsided, not consulted, not warned. And that kind of sting didn't heal quickly inside a family where everything operated on hierarchy and deference. You didn't make unilateral decisions in the House of Windsor, not if you wanted to stay welcome in the house. So by the time Commonwealth Day arrived, the relationship wasn't fraying. It was already frayed. The cameras just made it impossible to pretend otherwise. And Meghan's solution to being stuck in that room with that energy? Simple. Smile. Don't stop smiling. The frozen smile. Bernie flagged something specific about Meghan's face during the Commonwealth Day service. The smile never broke. Through the procession, through finding her seat, through observing other guests, it stayed, fixed, unwavering. A truly relaxed person adjusts. They listen. Their face shifts with the moment. Meghan's expression didn't shift once. It was tense and controlled. The kind of smile that takes actual muscular effort to maintain, and nobody else around her matched it. No one else in the immediate vicinity was grinning, which made Meghan's permanent beam stand out like a spotlight in a darkened room. Bernie waved off the possibility of Meghan simply being thrilled to attend. The assessment was blunt. This looked like someone making a calculated effort to appear unbothered, projecting composure while being actively ignored. It was a performance, a good one. But performances have tells, and the tell here was the consistency itself. Real happiness shifts. It reacts to the room. It dims and brightens. Meghan's expression did none of that. It just held. 17 minutes of unbroken radiance in a room that felt like a freezer, because that was the other half of this equation. While Meghan smiled like her life depended on it, Kate did something equally loud. Kate's blank wall. Kate looked past Meghan like she was a pillar. No eye contact, no sideways glance, no flicker of acknowledgement. Bernie pointed out the positioning. Kate was well within Meghan's eye line, close enough for even incidental eye contact to be natural, and she gave nothing. Sometimes a non-reaction tells you more than a reaction ever could. Kate didn't glare. She didn't scowl. She didn't purse her lips or shift uncomfortably. She simply acted as though Meghan occupied a different dimension. And that was the knife. Because anger would have acknowledged the relationship, discomfort would have indicated tension. What Kate gave was nothing, the kind of blank that takes practice, and Meghan kept smiling. That tension between the two responses was almost theatrical. One woman performing warmth with every muscle in her face, the other performing indifference with every angle of her posture. Two masks, two strategies for surviving the same room. The cameras caught both, and viewers got to pick which performance they believed. But the tension between Meghan and Kate didn't start at Westminster Abbey. The press had been building this bonfire for years, and the kindling was absurdly petty. The pantyhose test. When Kate Middleton skipped the pantyhose during a public appearance, the press called it a bold maternity fashion choice. Modern, relatable, a princess dressing for comfort. When Meghan did the same thing, the headlines called it a protocol breach. Same legs, same missing hosiery, but two completely different narratives. And this pattern repeated like clockwork. Every small choice Meghan made got put under a microscope and labeled a transgression. Kate's identical choices got repackaged as charming independence. The media treated royal protocol like a flexible rulebook. Bendable for Kate, rigid for Meghan. Kate doing her own wedding makeup, refreshing. Meghan breaking traditions, a threat to the institution. The pantyhose story was small, almost silly, but it exposed the machinery underneath. the invisible editorial lens that decided which woman got grace and which got punishment. And when the press needed a bigger weapon, they found one. The crying reversal. The narrative went nuclear when reports surfaced that Meghan had made Kate cry during a disagreement about bridesmaid dresses before the Sussex wedding. It landed like a grenade. Meghan became the bully, Kate became the victim. Headlines ran for weeks and commentary shows dissected it. The story cemented a dynamic that the tabloids would ride for years. Meghan later told Oprah it was the other way around. That Kate had made her cry over a bridesmaid fitting. That she'd been willing to forgive and move on. That Kate had even apologized and sent flowers. But by then, the original headline had already done its damage. 3 years of damage. This was what character assassination looked like in the royal press ecosystem. You didn't need proof. You needed the first story. You needed to plant it deep enough that the correction couldn't reach the roots. And the correction always arrived too late, too quiet, and already buried under the next scandal. Kate emerged from the bridesmaid saga as a sympathetic figure. Meghan emerged as a villain, and neither woman ever fully controlled that narrative. Because the press wasn't done rewriting history. Not by a long shot. The handholders. From the very beginning, Harry and Meghan's public displays of affection broke the unspoken rules. Cameras caught them strolling hand in hand on multiple occasions, linked fingers with his hand on the small of her back. The kind of visible, tactile closeness that the British royal family rarely showed in public. William and Kate kept a careful physical distance at events. Not cold, but controlled. The way the institution preferred it. And the contrast wrote itself. Harry and Meghan looked like a couple. William and Kate looked like colleagues on a diplomatic mission. For some, the PDA was endearing. But for the press, it became another piece of evidence that Meghan didn't understand the assignment. That she was too American, too informal, too herself. Holding your husband's hand shouldn't have been controversial. But in the royal context, it was treated like a manifesto. And when Meghan actually did write a kind of manifesto, the reaction was predictable. Forces for change. In September 2019, Meghan guest-edited British Vogue. The cover was titled, "Forces for Change." It featured 15 women reshaping the world. Meghan talked about the issue as a mirror. Anyone picking it up should be able to see themselves reflected in it. It was activist work, intentional, loud. She wasn't just curating fashion, she was curating a message. And for those who wanted the monarchy to stay decorative, it was too much. The criticism wasn't about the quality of the issue. It was about the audacity of a royal using that platform to push for something bigger than ribbon cuttings and hospital visits. A duchess with an editorial vision wasn't charming, it was threatening. Kate's public profile, by contrast, stayed precisely inside the lines the palace drew. Safe charities, traditional appearances, nothing that could be mistaken for a personal agenda. One woman pushed, the other held still, and the institution made it very clear which approach it rewarded. That reward system was never more visible than at a funeral. The Peacemaker edit. Prince Philip's funeral in April 2021 should have been about the man in the coffin. But the cameras cared more about the living, specifically about Kate. Coverage after coverage praised her for a moment where she appeared to hang back, giving William and Harry space to walk side by side. The press read it as diplomatic genius, a peacemaker, a bridge between two feuding brothers. Articles gushed about her warmth toward Harry, her tact, her emotional intelligence. It was remarkable. A funeral turned into a PR win, not by Kate herself necessarily, but by the machine that narrated her every public breath. And the framing positioned Kate as the calm center of a royal storm she hadn't caused. The diplomatic duchess, the steady hand. Meanwhile, Meghan was 7,000 miles away, pregnant and absent. She didn't attend. Doctors advised against the travel, but even her absence generated commentary. Columns questioned whether she should have made the effort. Think pieces dissected the optics. Because in this media ecosystem, Meghan didn't need to be present to be the problem. Her shadow was enough, and the ghost hovering over all of it, the one neither daughter-in-law could escape, was the woman buried in the same abbey decades earlier. Diana's bracelet. When Meghan sat down with Oprah in March 2021, she didn't just speak, she curated. On her wrist was Princess Diana's Cartier bracelet, a deliberate visual link to the most beloved royal in modern history. A woman whose story of palace isolation, press cruelty, and institutional indifference mirrored the one Meghan was about to tell. The bracelet wasn't an accessory, it was an argument. Meghan spoke about mental health struggles, about asking for help and being told it wouldn't look good for the institution. The parallels to Diana's experience wrote themselves, and Meghan knew it. Harry reinforced the connection directly. He referenced his mother. He referenced fear of history repeating itself. The message was clear. This family had broken one woman already. He wasn't going to let it happen again. The interview detonated across every continent. Half the world saw a courageous echo of Diana's famous panorama sit-down. A woman refusing to be silenced by the same machine that crushed her mother-in-law. Half saw calculated manipulation by someone who'd studied the playbook and knew exactly which heartstrings to pull. But while Meghan borrowed Diana's pain, the press had already given Kate something else entirely. Diana's crown. The better princess. Kate Middleton didn't get compared to Diana because of shared trauma. She got compared because of shared composure. The press positioned Kate as the princess Diana could have been, should have been. If only Diana had kept the stiff upper lip. If only she'd played the game without all that messy emotion and public vulnerability. Kate's outfits echoed Diana's. Photographs with her children mirrored the maternal iconography Diana had mastered. Even Kate's charity work was framed through Diana's legacy. But these comparisons quietly erased the most important parts of Diana's story. The loneliness, the eating disorder, the feeling of being a liability that the institution needed to manage, the woman who sobbed in red coats at airports and spoke openly about wanting to disappear. Kate became the sanitized upgrade, confident, in control. Everything the palace wanted from a princess, delivered without disruption. Author Hilary Mantel once described Kate as someone designed by committee and built by craftsmen. A perfect plastic smile without quirks, without oddities, without the risk of character emerging. Machine-made. And that was the final move. The press didn't just pit Meghan against Kate. They pit two versions of what a princess should be against each other. One who challenged the system, and one who held it close. The monarchy chose, and the cameras made sure we all watched them do it. But what do you think? Which of these Meghan versus Kate disasters truly cemented the fallout for you? Drop your takes in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed to the Star Report yet, what are you waiting for?